The Eurovision Song Contest has a quite unique hosting model, which is you win it, you host it. But the hosting is quite a complex thing. It is arguably the most complex live television production you have to put together. And my job as the executive supervisor is to run the contest and manage the brand on an annual basis, and to help with the knowledge transfer from each country when it comes to the hosting obligations.
And of course, viewers will see you on screen as well. What are your responsibilities?
Well, as part of being the executive supervisor, I also run the voting, and I make sure that the result is a valid one. And we have a very complex voting system, perhaps one of the more complex there are, with collecting data from over 150 telecommunications carriers across Europe. That's all happening in real time. We're also collecting the votes from the national juries as well, and having to make sure that that's all the way it should be before we give the hosts the sign that they can move on.
Here in the UK, it hasn't always been taken so seriously, but now it seems to have a new credibility. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a combination of different things. I mean, I think one thing is the musical success of the Eurovision Song Contest. When I started working with this years ago, people were still referring to the legends like ABBA or Celine Dion having come from success in the Eurovision Song Contest. But in recent years, we've shown that the Song Contest can actually provide hits of today and tomorrow with acts like Duncan Lawrence, Måneskin, Rosalind from Armenia last year, who finished in 20th place in the grand final, but had a global smash hit. And so it's that dream of overnight success that is still alive, and it exists in the Eurovision Song Contest. I think that's a big part of it, Especially also with the UK, there are some specific factors here with finally sort of turning the table of getting a good result with Sam Ryder last year. And the fact that you haven't hosted it in the UK in a long while is also, when the event comes to a city, a country, and a region, it really brings a lot of positive energies, and I think we're feeling that right now in the UK and in Liverpool.
Talk me through the conversations that went on before it was decided that the UK would host this year's competition.
Well, obviously, the Eurovision Song Contest is an event of a scale that most people perhaps do not realize. We have an accreditation system, obviously, in the venue for people coming in and out, where you have to carry a badge to get access. And typically, for a Eurovision Song Contest event period, we're 8 weeks in an arena, and there are about 10 or 11,000 people with those kind of badges working behind stage to make this thing happen. And of course, to bring an event of that scale, that amount of people to a territory that are going through the kind of difficulties that Ukraine is at the moment is unfortunately not possible. So it was pretty clear to us that sadly we could not go to Ukraine.
What new challenges did this bring to already huge and complex production?
Well, I mean, at the moment, of course, the Russian invasion of Ukraine does affect us a lot, and that's been on top of our minds when we're doing this in Liverpool on behalf of Ukraine, of course. And there's a lot of consequences around that that have been challenging. But apart from that, I would say the overall sort of downturn in the economy, the financial implications of the current situation, inflation, cost of living crisis. I mean, these are things that affect everyone and all of us, but it's specifically difficult to host a large and expensive production and event like the Eurovision Song Contest. So we have to work a lot with the financial sustainability of this event.
Well, it's been given the royal seal of approval. Of course, King Charles III and Queen Camilla have visited the stadium in Liverpool. What an honour for the city. How important is it for the contest itself?
I think it is important. I think it's important for everyone involved in the Eurovision, and I think it's important for all the fans of the Eurovision that this is, it is a fun and light-hearted event, but it's also built on very important values of universality, inclusivity, diversity, and it's very good for the Eurovision to be taken with that kind of dignity and seriousness, and that it's not just a fun little event on the side. It's actually quite an important event for Europe.
And the producers have hinted that this year's event there'll be a big change in the way that the show looks. What can you tell me about that?
Like I said, it's an old tradition. It's the 67th edition, but we always want to keep it evolving and work with the creative development of it to make it to stay relevant through the years. And there are always little tweaks in how we present the shows, how we do the running order, or how we do the voting presentation, or whatever it might be. So the BBC team has really gone into this with that mindset of honouring the traditions, but also to try and see what we can do to make it even more relevant and with a new creative twist.
And you talked about the voting system before being quite complicated and complex. It's been changed because the professional juries will only vote in the grand final. Why make that decision?
Well, we've had that before as well. So this is something that sort of ebbs and flows. But I think we felt now that it was time to give even more power to the audience and power to the people. We're seeing that the success of the Eurovision Song Contest today is very much driven by the power of the fans and the activities that are going on social media and in digital channels and so on. And we want to give a little bit more emphasis on the fact that you at home watching the show will actually determine the outcome. So that's for the semi-finals. In the grand final, however, we wanted to keep the combination of professional juries and the public to also make sure that we have a proper and valid ranking of all the songs, but also to have the right winner, which is in line with the winners that we've had in the past.
Well, most countries compete in the semi-finals. However, there's a group known as the Big Five: UK, Spain, Italy, France and Germany, who automatically qualified due to their financial contributions. Is that fair?
Well, no. I suppose it's not. But the question in my mind, is that to their benefit or is that to their disadvantage? Because we have seen in the past, actually in the past couple of years, the Big Five have been coming back in a big way. France has done well. Italy obviously won. UK now doing well. But prior to that period, the Big Five were actually all struggling. And during that time, I was wondering, maybe it's not a great thing to not be part of the semi-finals, because if you're part of the semi-finals, obviously the audience out there will be able to see your full act, hear your song once before the grand final, and it'll be shared more, and people will be more familiar with it. So I'm not sure it's always the best thing for the Big Five, actually.
Do you think going forward, Martin, it may be changed and it will be everyone on the same level?
I think this is something that for us has been discussed many, many times over the years, and I don't see it changing, to be honest. I think this is probably the way we will continue.
There was a time, the 90s, the noughties, where it didn't feel that Eurovision had that kind of impact. Why do you think that was, and what's changed?
I think the quality of the shows has improved a lot. And I also think the quality of the songs. And so the contributions of the host broadcaster, the unit that puts together the shows, that has become more professional, it's become more modern. It sets the standard for modern day live TV production. It's the showcase of the newest modern show technology, lighting and things like that. I think that's one part of it. Yeah. But I also think the membership, the participating broadcasters of the EBU who take part in this, they've become more professional in how they approach the song contest, how they plan their stage performance, and what kind of music they bring to the contest. So I think in general, the level of quality has increased a lot.
What do you want your own contribution to Eurovision to be?
I'd like to be able to contribute to the Eurovision Song Contest so that we can keep this going for another 67 years or so. And I think making it modern, making the brand popular, making it more ubiquitous, making the financial sustainability stronger, the project platform stronger, so to speak. That's what I can do from my executive supervisor level.
Martin, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you.